Thank you, listeners, for joining us for today's Elko Live program. And in fact, we're on the road, at least one of us is, and that's our local lawmaker in Assembly District 33. Bert Gurr is making a quick trip home to maybe get some rest. Bert, thank you for joining us on the radio show today.
You're very welcome, Lori.
So obviously we want to get caught up, and of course we'll preface this program by letting listeners know that we're going to air this program the day it originated on this Friday, and then again an encore repeat show Monday, just to kind of get our arms around what's going on in the session, Bert, and things could really change a lot, we know, between Friday and Monday, except that you guys aren't supposed to reconvene until Monday, is that right?
Yeah, the Senate's supposed to go back in at 11 on Monday, and then the Assembly just has to wait for them to get their work done. And we have an 11 o'clock call also, but I don't think we're going to actually convene ourselves until 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
So if it's possible to get up to speed, Bert, we know that this has to be one of the most partisan legislative sessions, in certainly recent history. But, how did we get here? There weren't really any early signs, right? We didn't seem to get a warning from the governor. The battle lines seem to be drawn now between the Democrats in control and our Republican governor.
Well, the governor knew it was going to happen the whole time. I mean, so did we. Early on, they gave Republicans hearings on their bills, and then sat on them, didn't work session them until later in the session. And the prime example of that is AB 429. We had it heard in revenue, and that's the airport bill, by the way. We had it heard in revenue. We had it heard in ways and means. There were 3 hearings on it. Revenue, 3 hearings that I participated in. Went to the Senate side. Well, we never got to the Senate side. They sat on it. Oh, yeah, we did. We went to, God, no. It's confusing. AB 429 never got a hearing on the Senate side. What they did was resurrected AB 58 out of Ways and Means in the Assembly side, which AB 58 was the sister bill to it, which had most of what we wanted in it, but not all of it. That's why we did 429. So the Assembly Ways and Means chairman took the AB 58, which was submitted under the Nevada League of Cities, passed that out of Ways and Means, went to the Senate side. It was heard over there. Everything was lovely, hunky-dory. 11 o'clock on the last night, Pete Gogachia was ready, Senator Gogachia was ready to read the floor statement, and the chairman of the Assembly Finance Committee gutted the bill on the floor at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not sure how that's possible, but they did it and took out the $10 million for the air services side, which is what we needed, left in the $2 million on the infrastructure, which is fine because that'll generate 32 to 34 million extra FAA funds for small airports, rural airports. But that's just the way, they never warn you that they're going to do it. They didn't talk to us about any of that stuff when it started moving through the money committees. That's a long synopsis for why it's so partisan. Really, they just want to get the governor,
Yeah.
You could equate him to Trump as far as the Republicans in Nevada think.
Or Republicans or Democrats, did you mean?
Oh, I meant Democrats, sorry.
That's okay, Bert. Just wanted to make sure we make that clear. And I think that, you never have to apologize. I mean, you were using that as an example to explain how, things are moving along. I think, for example, Senator Goygachia's, water bills, he and others worked on those for months, if not, you could assume years, because this has been a big part of his career. And
Yep.
Absolutely, all they were asking for was, the infrastructure for this to get this program going. Conservation groups are on board. A whole host of people came together to sit at the table.
Well, they got some hearings on it, and they did get hearings. It just didn't get the votes. They didn't get the votes out of it. 180 got across to us. We voted it out clean. and the Senate didn't concur on it. So then they went to a conference committee, and if you've ever seen one of those, it looks like a mosh pit, and it ended up dying. They just didn't even get it done.
So we got to the deadline, which was, last Monday, certainly that supposed to be finished with the session. And not only did we get one special session called immediately to deal with the appropriations, right, the CIP, but then, right, and then did you want to talk about that one at all, how that one got churned out finally? Huh?
Oh, Lori, I haven't really looked closely at it. It was such we'll just say a show. Senator Hansen called it something else. But the Dems just fed it full of, there was, I think it was $250 million of pork that I heard was in that bill. And that's why most of us Republicans voted against it.
Because we were also looking close to home and some of the things that, the pork, if you will, but to fund important things like Committee Against Domestic Violence in our community, there's no mention. And if you look at the list and I believe it's on the Nevada Independent website, Assemblyman, then you'll see that there are I don't see any rural. I couldn't, at least in my perusing so far. Things are moving so fast, it's hard to keep up. I don't see too many rural things being funded.
No, there wasn't much that got funded. We thought we were working pretty well together. And in fact, some of the Democrats are working hard. They almost could be Republicans, some of them, but even they got their bills killed because they were looking a little bit too much like it might lead to the governor getting a win on something. It's just amazing. To me, it was just total politics at its worst this session, or the end of the session.
Right, the very, very end of the session. Everybody's exhausted. Yeah. Things are played out. All the cards are basically on the table, except for, then these the other situations that you've been describing. So is there a way to bring us around? I think for a lot of people in rural Nevada, they think of the A's Stadium as a Southern Nevada issue, but this has had a huge impact on the Nevada legislative session, and that's why you're still in discussion. You're not headed home for the session. You have to go back.
Yeah, we have to go back Monday, or be in session Monday. Yeah, the first special session, which was Tuesday after we got done at midnight, or 10 after midnight on Monday, called us back in. We stayed there until midnight Tuesday night. But that had an ending time on it. It had to dead end at midnight on Tuesday. This special session doesn't have an ending time on it.
And the focus of it, from what we understand, is the governor convened this second special session for the $380 million public assistance for the Oakland A's. They want to leave, California, and they want to build a stadium $1.5 billion where the Tropicana is, and it's now a 35th special session. And we understand that this is the whole crux of this, and it's brought up a host of interesting discussions, Bert, and I think you said it this way. I mean, some Republicans are acting like Democrats, but some Republicans have had it, and they don't want to see this project funded if we can't fund other important things in rural Nevada, such as air service development, as you just described, and even the water legislation that was crafted so carefully.
Yeah, that's for sure. But the interesting thing about this bill is because the governor indicated he might want it, there's a lot of Democrats who have thrown their hands up and they don't want it. But, and there's always a but in this deal, the culinary union in Las Vegas, I would say they control most of the building. And when these Democrats go home this weekend and talk to them, if they talk to them, they will hear, you better pass it because we want the jobs. And there's, I forget how many jobs they promise, but they're short-lived until the stadium's built. The numbers don't match. It's the worst team at Major League Baseball. And you ought to see the emails on how bad this owner is. And I'm not going to disparage the owner because I don't know him, but people who say they do say he won't pay anything. I mean, it's amazing. So from where I stand, unless we get the air service back, I'm a solid no on that damn The only thing I've got to trade is air service. If we don't get that, I'm a no. And even if we do get it, I might still be a no. I don't see this being a benefit to the state of Nevada.
Our local lawmakers, Bert Gurr in Assembly District 33, is literally on the road on Friday, stopped in Lovelock just to make this call for us, and we so appreciate the update, Assemblyman, and we know that you're headed back because the special session will resume on Monday. But obviously we're talking about the highlights and the lowlights of this Nevada legislative session. You're a freshman, so that made it equally challenging, didn't it?
For the most part, yes, it did. The process and procedures are a lot different than I imagined them. I've been down here a lot, and if you don't sit through an entire session on the floor and you don't get all the processes and procedures. As an example, I had my one bill that passed. It was a Southwest Gas sponsored bill, and it was really a call before you dig thing. And it was very, very simple. All it did was add in the people who run the 811 number. It had them into legislation so that they could get all the data they need from the state of Nevada. Simple bill. The floor statement, before the bill's voted on, they give you a floor statement. Complicated that bill so much. I handed it to my colleague next to me, and I said, "Do you understand this?" She said, "No, not at all." So instead of reading that, I did it on my own. I winged it. And my closing line on this bill really is call before you dig so you don't blow yourself up. I got my butt chewed afterwards.
Right.
For not reading the floor statement. That was printed for me. I didn't write it. They did. So they said there's a process here. And I said, okay, I apologize. I thought it was my bill. I thought I could describe it. No, you have to read what's on your desk and then go to order of business 15, and then you can say what you want.
Right. Oh, God.
I didn't do that twice, believe me, Lori. I only did that once. So.
Well, and that was sort of, as you said, getting thrown into the fire and learning about the process and lending to other discussions. In the assembly side, obviously, you have to wait for bills to come over from the Senate. I think this last one, I don't know that you and I have talked, that listeners have had the benefit of your input on SB 519. That's the rural school account. Certainly that took a lot of people by surprise. Just kind of wanted to check in with you on that one and see how you think that settled out.
Well, it passed.
Absolutely. It passed. Yeah. Was there was one vote.
And the governor's going to sign it.
Yeah. And there's only one vote in opposition, correct? From both houses, from what? Truly, I don't know. It was going to fly no matter what. Right. And you did support it, correct?
I did.
Yes. Yeah. And we understand. Oh, go ahead. Please explain. Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell me.
No.
I do understand what.
Well, what I understand is that it provides funding for the accounts for rural schools, statewide, the rural schools, and that the same thing that the county commissioners talked about in their meeting that they called on Friday the 2nd was that if we don't support this, then they will simply set the tax rate for us, meaning the state lawmakers. So that's why they reluctantly supported it. One vote against, and that was Commissioner Wildy Bruff.
Yes, I didn't listen to it because I was in the middle of another committee or another floor session that was going on forever, but I picked up part of it.
And you and I did talk about this, and you did say, I learned that it would pass constitutional muster, and that was a big question during the county meeting.
It absolutely would. There's a rule called Dillon's Rule that I really haven't gone in depth with, but it says that they handle it. The legislature has control of the counties and the cities. The charters have to be approved by the legislature in every one of these. It's a little weird to me, but that's what it does. And they've done this to counties before, and cities. And so it was inevitable when it comes out of the Senate, or it was the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, written by the chairman, that it's going to go.
Alexis Hansen, actually, which surprised some people, correct?
No, it's Alexis is just a member that she's not even on Ways and Means, but it was. Let me back up. Alexis tried to get an appropriation to get that school bill, and they killed that. So then again the Democrats taking bills and doing them themselves put this into this obnoxious legislation that could have easily been done a lot differently, and that. The county, when I talked to them at length on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before the bill was heard on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was really quick because it popped up. We didn't know anything about it until the night it came out, which was like Tuesday night or Monday night of the week before it was heard. It generated a lot of, what do I want to say, disgust from my side of from me. And the conversations were, well, it doesn't matter. Elko County School District did not take care of the problem up there. And I said the Elko County School District didn't build that school. BIA built that school. And BIA should be the responsible party. Why they're not, I don't know. And I know that the Hansons worked on that end too. But the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee decided to put it in a bill that she sponsored. It comes out Ways and Means, but she sponsored and pushed, had it written by the lobbyist for the Indian tribes. And we negotiated for 3 days trying to get things straightened out so that Elko County, because they already got the tax in place, could just put it in and take out the pop caps, the population caps and floors, and not make it look like an attack on Elko County. And the chair wouldn't even hear it. She said, no, I don't want that amendment in there. We had it amended. We had things done. We thought it was going, and she wouldn't even look at it. So there was a lot of back and forth between Alexis, myself, and the lobbyist, because going to the chair made no sense. She was looking at 300 bills, hand picking what she wanted to hear and not. But it angered me to no end that she would attack us directly. So it is strictly, and I know that Rex thought, Commissioner Steninger thought I said it was a revenge on the county. It wasn't. It's on the school district for not taking the money when they had it and doing the maintenance on the building. But there's so many stories about what's right and wrong up in Hawaii that this will solve the problem.
Yes.
And Elko County could take a win on this if they spun it just a little bit, because they did step up to the plate and they've already offered the money to go into these funds, and they don't have to raise taxes to do it. So it's a win for Elko County if they do it right. To me, at $64 million, the school gets built. The two funds, the two maintenance funds get in there, and then White Pine may get a school out of it. They might have to raise a penny of their tax, but they're waiving the tax cap on the counties that want to do this, but they put a may in there instead of a shall, like they did with us.
So moving on from that one, once the Hawaii, yeah, right. Well, thank you.
Sometimes,
oh, go ahead.
Sometimes I can get way in depth on this stuff, especially the stuff I feel passionate about, and that one I felt really passionate about.
And I think that's evident, Bert, talking with our local assemblyman. And it's important that people hear this discussion so they know how much work is going on behind the scenes. You're not just sitting in a paneled room behind a bunch of wooden desks and, nodding and deferring to each other. There's
far from that.
Right.
So let me tell you about the one win that I think sort of I got this session. The one big win is they killed that horse naming bill. They wanted to take the wild Mustang and make it the state horse. Mm-hmm. And the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee, a Democrat, asked me if I liked the bill. And I said, no, I won't tell you all the words we said. She said, if you don't want to hear it, if you don't want me to hear it, we won't. I said, what? Now, this is a Democrat telling a Republican freshman she won't hear the bill if I don't want it. Okay. And as it went on, she absolutely meant it. She started sending all the proponents to me to talk about it. And then she finally got forced by her leadership to hear the bill. But she gave the opposition the same amount of time as she gave the proponents, which is unheard of. in assembly or Senate hearings. Actually, your opposition to a bill gets to testify in opposition for 2 or 3 minutes generally. We got the whole thing and put together a group of environmentalists, sportsmen, all sorts of people. We got that all put together in like 3 days and killed the bill.
And Bert, that that is a great sign. Maybe that is actually some indication that these diverse groups will come together. I don't think the wild horse advocates will ever come to the table to this setting in particular. But when you get sportsmen and you get conservation groups who understand the degradation of the landscape and what it's doing to wildlife and the habitat and some of the species that they're trying to protect.
And that was the major issue that glued everybody together, the degradation of the range. And the people that pushed the bill, they used fourth graders to push it.
Right,
if you can
right.
believe that. They don't have a concept, because where they're talking about is the what do they call it? The range right outside of Carson. Oh, the Carson Range, I guess. And they have all these horses out there that people feed. And they don't look real bad according to the people, and the ones they see are right along the road because that's where they get fed. But all the pictures we had in opposition were taken on the same place with dead foals, dead mares, everything out there.
Mm-hmm. And they're feral horses too. I mean, there's.
Oh yeah, they're feral horses. There never has been a Mustang in the state of Nevada, according to all the information.
But I mean, in that, as you said, that neighborhood, that particular, and if anybody's ever seen, photos of the damage of a mangled horse that's been hit by a car, and then, if you lost family members to a collision with a horse, that's tragic. So yeah,
it's a horrible situation down there. Even down there, in a different concept, it's horrible there. It's horrible where we live, and the people that want to push all this stuff don't ever come out and look at the eastern part of the state. I asked them directly when they'd come to my office, have you ever seen what's going on in the eastern? No, we don't know, So, until you get out there and look and understand it, you will never get me to support anything that looks like Nevada really doesn't have a horse problem.
Well,
that's what changing it would have done.
Right, right. And that's what air service development, right? Once we get people that can get on airplanes and actually come back out to rural Nevada, and like we had. So should we shift gears just a bit so that, again, knowing that this was a Senate bill, but obviously you're fully aware of what SB 226, that's the prevailing wage, the expansion that could have, eroded all the public-private partnerships in rural communities, especially. I guess maybe that one has come out okay. It was stripped of some harmful language by Warren Hardy.
Yes, Warren Hardy did a really good job of cleaning it up. I think it still got voted. It probably got voted out. I think I voted no on it, even though he did what we asked him to. But it still did not. And if I didn't vote no, it was a bunch of stuff going on at the same time. But still, they're trying to build hospitals down in Vegas, and they don't want to be saddled with this. So they pay prevailing wage when they're building them. They just don't want to sign the contracts with the unions. And that would have forced him to sign the contracts with the unions. So he got that out. I mean, he got that in the bill, and he took all the rest of it out. And this was generated, Lori, by a move that the governor did down there when he was trying to get buildings built for his sheriff's department without costing the taxpayer a bunch of money. They would lease back the buildings from the people who built them. So that's where the cause came in, is that the lease back provision, and he couldn't get rid of that, but that's all it stayed in. Was if it was a lease back provision on a government partially funded building, then you got to pay prevailing wage.
And we know about that in Elko, right? With our conference center, we kind of learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see what happened there, but yeah, it's cleaned up enough to where it's a doable thing, and I don't think if we run into trouble, we'll fix it next time.
And that's Jan Baum, our city manager. She talked about that, and she'd been following that legislation in particular. So she seemed to think it was far less onerous, and that it stripped out that lease back, which was what was so causing so much strife, as you mentioned, with the groups. Any effort to sidestep prevailing wage. So I guess moving forward on that one, and I'm looking here to see if we have kind of run down all of the local bills, I guess the most prominent local bills that other than, and hoping to catch up with Pete Goigachia, but I have to say I've seen just some photographs of the senator, and this is his, he's termed out, and he looks so exhausted. I hope he's okay, Bert. He just, he's given so much, to...
He is tired. There isn't anybody in the building that isn't exhausted.
Right.
These midnight nights we had 4 in a row where you have to be in there in the building in the morning, and then you're there all day, and don't leave the building. You can't leave the building. Well, 15 minutes, I sat on floor after it's been called for an hour and a half before we do anything. And I know it doesn't sound like sitting around should wear you out, but believe me, it does.
Oh yeah, those meetings are exhausting. So what are you anticipating coming up on Monday, certainly? By the time this broadcast airs, both Friday and Monday, Bert, what are the indications?
Talked to 2 senators today, one being Pete. Actually talked to him last night, come to think of it. And then a senator out of Vegas who was leaving the same building I'm staying in. And I don't think he's got the votes. I think Monday, if it goes to the Senate floor, I think they're going to vote it down unless they really do some lobbying between here and there. And that's possible. That's why they let us go home, so that they can work on it. My opinion is that it's not going to go anywhere. I think there's too many people opposed to it right now. But stranger things have happened.
And I guess we're talking about lawmakers considering SB 509 and that proposed capping the public funding at $380 million toward the $1.5 billion 30,000 seat ballpark that's sought by the A's. And so that's what lawmakers are working on right now. And there's nothing else tied to that, Bert?
No, not a thing. The special session is just for that bill only, because the bill didn't get out when it didn't get out of the building, out of the Senate side. We didn't even look at it on the Assembly side.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, largely driven by the Culinary Union, obviously they would benefit. But one thing I think that whether Democrat or Republican or even independents are considering now, Bert, is when we get these huge projects and the impact the social services and the infrastructure of communities, and whether it's a Tesla, it all impacts the quality of living. And if there's no money coming in to offset that, no money for childcare, for parents that aren't paid affordable wages, for the condition of streets, for example, for just the general cost of living, and it generally brings greater wealth to the the owners and shareholders of these stadiums.
Yeah, and believe me, this one, the Culinary thinks it's going to bring a better quality of living. That's how they're trying to sell it. I don't believe it's going to bring a better quality of living to anybody. The other argument is that in 5 years, if they don't perform, that the state of Nevada owns that corner worth $1+ billion without the stadium. So the numbers, are really weird, and the Democrats are trying to, in the Senate, asked a bunch of questions. And like I say, I talked to a Democrat senator this morning, and she said the numbers just don't match. Just doesn't match at all. So unless they can convince them that the numbers are there long term, and here's one of the numbers that's a little hard to swallow. They're counting on 27,000 people attending 81 games a year for the next 30 years. That's when you look at a Major League Baseball stadium, especially with a team that's in the bottom. If you fill a quarter of that stadium, you're doing really well. So,
right. So, Bert, thank you so much again for your time. I just want to remind listeners that our local lawmaker was on his way home, and I know Lee is probably anxiously awaiting for you to get there. You pulled over in Lovelock so we could have this conversation, and appreciate it so much. And I do hope that listeners understand what a commitment that you've made on our behalf in rural Nevada. And I know we'll be touching bases again, because by the time Monday rolls around, things will change a lot, I'm sure.
I hope they don't, Lori. I really do. I'm tired of the screwing around that's going on down here. That's being very blunt.
Right. And, well, next time, you kind of have a roadmap, do you think, for next time?
Yeah, I understand the process a whole lot better, and I've made some inroads with people. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of options, and we'll just see what next time brings. I know if we've got bills we need to do, that the cities and counties inside the district need to talk to me early on. I might get 8 or 9 bills. Really, truly, what I want to do is pass a law that you can only submit 2 bills, and that's it. Never happened, but 2 bills would probably get us out in 120 days.
At least get the conversation rolling. Yeah.
Well, and there were, I don't know, 200 or 300 bills that died because it couldn't get to the floor. Some of those were good bills, like Pete's.
Yeah.
There was no reason they shouldn't have gone, So anyway, I'm extending your time, but
no, and I think just the parting comment is that going forward, Bert, you're going to need a good counterpart. With Pete's retirement, our Nevada Senator Pete Goygachi of Eureka, who has spent a bulk of his political career serving rural Nevada, certainly from Eureka, and this was his last session, and you're going to need a good counterpart going forward. We know that there's here at home there's a lot of talk, and we know that Greg Hafen, I think, is intending to put his hat in the ring. Bert, so any closing thoughts on that, if you care to share?
At this point, it's all pretty fluid. There's a lot of talk going on, a lot of pressure in different directions. So what I would do is just say it's fluid right now. Who knows what it's going to do? It's fluid. I hear there's 4 or 5 people out of Pahrump. I hear that a guy by the name of Tibbetts out of Eureka is looking at it. There's all sorts of Jake Tibbetts, good guy. Lots of people looking at that seat. I can tell you that right now.
And as you've perfectly demonstrated, you really need somebody who can get the ball rolling, hit the ground, and start running. It's not because
it's not a job for somebody who doesn't have a clue. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and we're outnumbered, so yeah, a little charisma couldn't hurt at this point, right?
A lot of charisma will help.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. I'll get you back on the road so that Lee stays happy with all of us at Elko Broadcasting Company. And thank you so much, Bert, and we'll catch up again soon. Safe travels.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today, featuring our local lawmaker, Assemblyman in District 33, Bert Gurr. The encore edition of this program aired on Monday after the original broadcast on Friday, June 9th. Thank you for joining us for Elko Live today.